Shalom, and welcome to Branch of Israel. This is Rabbi Roger coming to you from God's beautiful country, Israel. I don't know about you, but for me, there are times I read something in the Bible and it makes no sense. Then there are other times I can read the exact same verse and I fully understand it. Is that just me, or do you run across that as well? For years I've read Romans 9:6 and always thought it was referring to the nation and people of Israel. I never thought any more of it than just that. I guess it would help if I were to read it to you. But it is not that the word of God has taken no effect, for they are not all Israel who are of Israel. In this verse I'm referring to the second half, for they are not all Israel who are of Israel. Reading this verse by itself makes no sense whatsoever. I've had my speculations over the years, like when Israel left Egypt. They were in total mixture because there were Egyptians who fled with them at the Exodus. Then over time, Israel started sleeping with other nations and mixture crept in. So by the time you get to the writings of Paul, you realize the reality of this. Well, in part, this is all very true, but it still does not describe what the verse is clearly saying. So is it possible then to know what Paul was talking about? Absolutely. In the next verse it states, "Nor are they all children because they are Abraham's descendants, but through Isaac your descendants shall be named." From this verse we know immediately that the Arabs are not descendants of Isaac. The Arabs are descendants of Abraham from Ishmael, and the true Israelites are descendants of Jacob, the son of Isaac. And as most of you know, Jacob's name was eventually changed to Israel, who the country is named after. Now, looking back at verse 6, they are not all Israel who are of Israel. We see one of the words for Israel is a synonym referring to Jacob, and the verse now would read, "For they are not all Israel who are of Jacob." Think about this for a minute. Throughout the centuries, Israelites intermingled so much that there's a lot of mixture as we see today. So then, if a man from Israel marries a woman not from the lineage of Jacob, their baby would not be a pure descendant. However, there is something in that child's blood that is passed on to him that no other descendants outside of Israel would receive, and that is the love for the Jewish people and a heart for Israel. This truly explains why there are Arabs today who have a heart for Israel. So in other words, I am saying that there are Arabs that could very well be included into this mix. After all, they might be a descendant from Isaac rather than Ishmael or both. Now, taking this information and applying Romans 11:26, we should have a better understanding of who Israel is when it states that a partial hardening has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in, and so all Israel will be saved. So, who is all of Israel? Well, we now know that it could very well be descendants from Abraham and not necessarily through Isaac's lineage. In other words, both Jew and Arab fall right into that mix. For more teachings and information, visit branchofisrael.com. Again, this is Rabbi Roger coming to you from Israel. Thank you so much for listening. Lehitraot, goodbye, or see you again.